G2K podcast. This is episode number 7, and I'm here with my good friend and brother from another mother, Hadi.
Hadi
Salman,
how's it going, brother?
right?
How's it going, man?
Not too bad. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on here, man.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for coming on. Long time coming.
Yeah, definitely.
I appreciate your time. And yeah, so I've known Hadi for 7, 8 years now, approximately.
Yeah, pretty much.
So when I was maybe second or third year in the industry, me and Hadi started at a studio at the same time, and the studio is called Nirvana. It's part of a sister company under the umbrella of Chorus Entertainment. So for whoever is familiar with the animation industry, that's one of the studios we were there for. Well, I was there for 3 years. How long were you there for?
I think I only stayed there for a year and a half.
A year and a half.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, where did you go?
I took a break, probably like 6 months or so, and then I jumped into the modeling department at ARC Productions.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we bumped into each other there again.
Yeah, exactly. It's a small industry.
So, yeah. And then, so tell everyone a little bit about you and who you are as a person, I guess.
Well.
So what's your background? Where have you, familia-wise?
So, it's an interesting situation. So like I was born in Yugoslavia, well the former Yugoslavia, in Serbia.
Yeah.
And my family migrated or immigrated to Canada when we were when I was about 3 years old.
Mm-hmm.
With my siblings. I got like five kids in the family.
Nice.
Yeah, my dad's a biochemist engineer. My mother is pretty much like a homemaker and stuff like that.
I actually didn't know your father was a biochemist engineer. That's crazy.
Yeah, he's a biochemist engineer.
Nice.
We grew up all over Toronto and stuff like that. We were always.
So how old were you when you came into Toronto? Like when you moved to Toronto?
Yeah, about around I think 3 or 4 years old.
Okay. So you were pretty much raised.
Yeah, I'm pretty much Canadian, man.
Yeah.
There's a bit of Iraqiness in me. Oh, yeah. That's one other thing. My background's Iraq.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I lived here pretty much my whole life and everything like that, and I started getting into what I thought was a silly kind of aspirational situation where I was younger. I would sketch and I would do my drawings and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I grew up in a household that was very religious.
Okay.
And let's just say everyone had a different view about drawing. Yeah.
I kind of experienced the same thing. So when you were growing up, your siblings and everyone, did they set? Are you the oldest in the family?
I'm dead center.
Dead center. Okay.
Older brother, older sister, and 2 younger brothers.
So did your older brother and older sister set like a high standard that you had to meet?
I think what it was is that with a large family like that, my parents assumed, the keyword assumed,
right,
that if you teach the older siblings,
mm-hmm,
that the information will follow suit throughout the
right, it'll trickle down the stream.
Yeah, didn't happen so much. But there was still like a way of like, I look up to my older brother. You know,
mm-hmm,
he's definitely a very inspirational individual in my life, and still like a very inspirational individual in my life.
So,
and my older sister,
right.
They're doing really well.
So they have had somewhat of an impact on you.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, like they definitely helped me with a lot and molded me as an individual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's the age difference?
Interesting fact. My older brother and my older sister is 1 year, 1 month, and 1 year apart. 1 day apart.
One.
Yeah, so April 23rd, May 24th, 83, 82.
So this is your older brother and your older sister?
Yeah, and then I'm a year apart from my older brother and 2 years apart from my older sister.
Mm-hmm.
And then down the line, younger than me is, I believe, a 5-year gap from my second youngest brother,
mm-hmm,
and an 8-year gap to the youngest brother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, big family, big gaps, but it was definitely a chaotic household growing up in
mm-hmm,
Toronto, and like trying to just figure out what works and what doesn't, and trying to balance out
mm-hmm,
how somewhat the religious kind of lifestyle worked.
Religious culture, and
Yeah.
then growing up in a Western society.
Yeah, and my parents were fresh from Iraq and stuff like that.
I feel like a lot of Middle Easterns in that regard, like you're torn in a way.
Yeah, man, it was
Yeah,
tough, man.
right.
Like growing up and everything like that, like you always want to make your parents happy.
That's the
And-
thing, right?
Yeah, and it got to a point where it's like you have to make yourself happy, you know. And I think when I started to allow myself to make my own decisions, I started realizing, hey, you know what, this is probably the right decision. And in the end of the day, like, you know, I hope that my parents would be proud of me. I hope that that you know they understand the decisions I'm making are the ones that I want to fulfill my needs and my happiness.
Parents at the end of the day they come around, but as
Yeah.
long as they see that you're happy and content and like living a pure lifestyle, like,
Yeah.
they'll be happy for you.
Yeah.
But the initial thing, like you mentioned, as far as like, I don't know, being creative and stuff like that, that's kind of like a niche industry, and for Middle Eastern parents and like I guess a lot of other cultures too, it's like, are you not gonna be an engineer or a doctor or whatever? It's something that has more of a, I don't know, like where they can brag about.
Yeah.
In terms of like these are the
exactly.
good jobs that people look up to, like these are
I think also they
suit and tie type.
Yeah. And they also, you got to keep in mind, is like they definitely had a vision in their minds, right? You know, coming from a war-torn country and coming here fresh and not knowing anything and not having any relatives here and not having any extra support.
Right.
It's tough on them, man.
Yeah.
You know, and throughout that time, I realized that I gotta listen. I gotta follow suit.
Right.
But the more I realized that I had to start, you know, making my own decision, the more I realized they started actually understanding that, hey, you know, it's okay to go against the grain sometimes.
How old were you when you started making those decisions for yourself?
Well, when I hit high school, I hit a couple of rough bumps and stuff like that, and I overcame that later on in life. And then when I realized I had to change my lifestyle, I realized that I had to get away from the environment I was in.
Right.
Some people say it's bad to run away and this and that, but sometimes it's actually a really good thing to just leave everything behind and start fresh.
Right.
My father always told me, like, my father is he's very poetic in how he speaks and stuff like that. But he always tells me about, like, you know, you got to have a blank page, a new chapter in your life to start sometimes, you know, to actually overcome whatever the previous history you had in your life.
That's dope.
Yeah, and so I listened to all that, and my dad is like, once again, like my mom and my dad, they're very like inspirational individuals throughout my whole life. It's just, I think they had their own, as I said, their own vision, their own kind of attitude towards what decisions I was making, but I think they were still confident in me that they knew that I was doing something right because of the fact that I started reacting and acting a different way when I left, and I moved up to Oakville, so I went to Sheridan. So I
did the animation program?
No, I didn't. I did illustration.
Okay.
So I didn't know how to draw. I didn't know how to do any of that. I was doing it when I was younger, as I said.
Right.
But like one thing about Muslim people, and maybe you know this also, is like that.
It's forbidden.
It's forbidden, especially when you draw faces, right?
Right.
One thing is like they always say it's like, oh, if you draw a face that is not real, right? It's like you're being God and you're creating a new image of a person. Right? But at the same time, I think those were ideas that were formed in a way where it's like that gray area of things, where it's like, for example, nowadays, back in the day, women were never allowed to wear makeup and stuff like that. It was always haram. It was like haram meaning that it was a sin and stuff like that. Right. And nowadays, it's like a common thing that, you know, individuals will wear whatever, you know, because it actually helps their confidence, wear their makeup and it helps their confidence. So like that gray area was, you know, in a way, it's okay now. Like, you know, you don't have to tell yourself you can't do something.
Well, the rules and stuff are becoming a little bit more modernized, and they're not being strictly imposed because, I don't know, it's not, you feel trapped in the decisions you make.
Exactly.
If I wasn't able to draw a face or do any life drawing, I wouldn't be in the position that I am right now.
And that's another thing about life drawing, right?
Yeah.
Especially when my parents came over and
they found out that you do life drawing?
Well, it's not like they found out. I told them.
Okay.
I told them initially and stuff like that. But how I related, how I told them was it's like, hey, you know what? doctors see human bodies naked,
Right.
right? For it to understand the anatomy of the body and stuff like that. So in a
Mhm.
way, it's like, hey, I'm looking at it in
It's
a way
more
where
of a
it's
study, not a sexual thing.
like, yeah,
Right.
right. And so like when I brought them in, and my mother wears a veil, like a hijab and stuff like that.
Okay.
It was a little different for her to like walk amongst all these pretty much naked images of people that
Right.
people were drawing stuff like that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, my mother has quite like modernized also and understood like you can't just be stuck in this kind of mindset of just being
Mhm.
closed-minded, and
Mm. Well,
yes.
it's hard to restrict that kind of stuff where it's all
Yeah,
around you, right?
yeah,
You start
exactly,
to become more
exactly,
open-minded.
exactly. And so yeah, like when I went to Sheridan, I improved in my work, like my drawings and my artistic skills. But at the start, I didn't get accepted to any illustration program or any animation program.
Yeah.
I did the art fundamental program,
Mhm.
learned the basics and the fundamentals of how to draw, basic shapes, stuff like that. And
Nice.
then I built up my portfolio. I applied for the illustration program. I got accepted amongst like 100 odd students, or 100 odd
Nice.
people, and I was pretty fulfilled. And then I realized, okay, what am I going to do with this? I think in the first year I was like all about the interpretive kind of stuff and everything like that.
Mhm.
And then I realized this is going to be a tough situation, right? And I
From a career perspective.
at least in my mind,
Okay.
right? Because I realized you to really break through those barriers of becoming a poster child or someone really up there in the industry of illustration.
You need to prove yourself.
Yeah, and there's a lot of individuals that have been doing this when they're like since elementary, not even elementary school, middle school to high school, and they went to specialize. And I looked at myself like, hey, I just started drawing when I was like 18, not even 18, 21 or 20.
Right.
So it's like I don't have that much experience and stuff like that. But then I realized I always still had that drive of being creative, So I had to figure out a different way to output my creativity. So wonderful thing I started learning more about the 3D realm of things.
Nice.
And I started realizing, hey, I'm more technical.
Right.
So illustration second year breaks off into two different programs. It breaks off into a technical stream and it breaks off into an illustration stream.
Mhm.
I chose the technical stream, A, because I knew there was going to be a job in the end, and B, I was able to apply the creativity I wanted in a technical manner.
Okay.
Um,
So technical drawings, as in, like, just give an example.
Botanical studies, anatomy studies, exploded views manuals. So all the stuff you see in IKEA and stuff like that,
Right.
how to put things together. Those are
Right,
individuals that are actually technical illustrators that
Got
actually
it,
do all
got
those
it,
things.
got it.
If you ever see car manuals, right? Any engineering kind of parts, all those are actual technical illustrators that are actually doing all those drawings and stuff like that. So I started doing that, and I realized, hey, you know what? I just don't want to do vector line. I just don't want to do just digital drawing. So I started dabbling into the 3D world of stuff, and I realized, hey man, there's like a lot of potential in this.
Yeah.
My older brother, Mr. Genius,
Mr. Genius.
me and him, I told him what I was doing in the program and stuff like that. He had a bit of time on his hand and stuff like that, and we started learning together 3D modeling as I was in school and he was just at home.
That's
And
dope.
this guy just like flew by me like no tomorrow. He introduced me to like some really solid like industry standard softwares. One thing illustration didn't offer was industry standard softwares.
Right.
Considering the fact that it didn't make any sense for an illustration program to offer a 3D software because they expected you to do.
Which program is primarily used for that kind of stuff?
Well, it's just pretty much Illustrator and Photoshop. Right, that's what the major kind of programs are. They did have softwares that were 3D software, but they were very low, like low budget kind of softwares that no one in the industry uses and stuff like that. But that helped me build it up my skill sets in a way to end up learning 3ds Max,
Right.
Maya, and more or less industry standard softwares. But yeah, as I said, my brother, he's very competitive, and like being a year apart from one another, this guy just pulled off a whole entire 3D model of a Ferrari from out of the blue.
Nice.
I'm just like, what? I'm just like, I'm here, lifting cylinders and extruding.
That's
extruding
usually the first model
Yeah.
people do to a car.
Yeah, and then and I saw him. It's and the thing about it is he was using a industry standard software, and I was using a crappy software that could only handle maybe 10 polygons.
Okay.
Before it crashes.
Right.
Well, not 10 polygons, but you know what I mean, a very low res kind of polygon.
Mm-hmm.
And then he told me start learning this program. So I'm like, all right. So I started learning and everything like that.
So that was what, 3ds Max?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I learned 3ds Max right away, and then he also told me, yeah, use this type of render engine, V-Ray.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized I was light years ahead of everyone in my program in learning 3D software. And then I accelerated to the full. But also I was still keeping in mind of my traditional stuff. So I was still doing watercolor drawings, ink, pen and ink, botanical studies of orchids and different kind of things. And I got to a point where it's I started realizing I really love 3D modeling.
Right.
And then that literally led into my 4th year of illustration, and I did my thesis in about artificial coral reef science center, an idea that I came out with that is pretty much a sustainable structure that uses wind turbines, tidal turbines, and solar panels to pretty much run a whole entire science center that is kind of a floating structure in the water.
Right.
But beneath the water, the structure is actually a full-on science center and also an artificial coral reef.
So this is for a specific client or just
No, this was
a
a
concept?
thesis. This was my
okay,
thesis.
so
I
that was
did
your
in 4th
thesis
year.
work.
And I got an insane amount of positive feedback from it.
That's dope.
Yeah, and I actually won Best in the Show because after an illustration, when you graduate, or just before you graduate, we have a grad show where all the students present all their work throughout the year or whatever thesis they were doing for that 4th year, and they display for family, friends, and industry people. Essentially trying to break into the industry and get a bit of recognition from people that actually are in the industry.
Nice.
And so yeah,
you fell in love with 3D and then implemented your technical skill.
Yeah, and the wild thing about that was also with my thesis, I randomly started realizing. Well, after I won the award and stuff like that, I actually got paid $500. That was pretty sweet.
$500.
Yeah, and then I realized afterwards that randomly I googled my name with the project I worked on, and I started realizing there was tons of people worldwide writing about my project.
Nice.
That I didn't know of, in different languages.
In what regard, though?
In somehow assuming that I was an architect, industrial designer.
Nice.
This structure was actually being built in Abu Dhabi.
No,
Yeah.
what?
All this kind of wild information about the project I was working on.
Right.
And it was just coming back from just the feedback or just me just posting stuff online. And it was really inspirational in a way where it's just wow, I got quite a bit of recognition for that. So then when I realized, I was oh, this is what I want to do. I did the 1-year post-grad program at Sheridan College for computer animation. I pretty much did that program. You do an interstitial, a little clip or a little advertisement, a 10-second one at the first 6 months, and then you do a little kind of short film for the remainder of time. And yeah, so I did my show. I did my little kind of interstitial and the little kind of short film. Broke into the industry. First job out was Nelvana. Really surprised because most people start off at a company that's a little
Yeah, an internship.
yeah,
some
internship
rundown
and stuff like
studio.
that. But they noticed that I had my skill sets were a little more advanced than the regular. And then I met you, and then the Akbars came together. That was a
Akbar
little
number one and Akbar number
Akbar
two.
number one. Akbar number two.
Squash and stretch.
Yeah.
So it's hard to notice, but Hadi is 6'4".
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm 4 inches
Yeah.
taller than me.
So I met Masood, and it automatically we saw eye to eye. Also for definitely the whole Middle Eastern
It's
connection
like
there.
cultural humor that nobody
makes
else
sense.
understands.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So where do you think, throughout your entire industry, I guess getting into the industry and your school path and whatnot, what drove you to choose the creative path?
I think it was just part of biology in a way. My grandfather was a furniture designer. He ran his own furniture company in Iraq.
So it's in your DNA.
Yeah, pretty much, man. Pretty much.
That's pretty
He was a
crazy.
designer and stuff like that. My mother would always, when we were younger, she would do, like, rearrange things in the house all the time. She's a homemaker and stuff like that. And she always, like, I always noticed, like, she was always into her fashion. I was always into that. And I was a lot more closer to my mom growing up. And the more I spoke with her, the more I got information about, like, you know, my relatives, because I never met my relative my whole entire life. Like, the only thing I know of them is just through
Word of mouth, family wise.
And then at one point, 5 years ago, I visited Iraq, and that was the most eye-opening situation in the world. It was a phenomenal.
How long ago was that?
I think 5 years ago. I think it's been 5 years
ago.
Yeah.
So eye opening in what sense? Like.
Oh man. Like, to me, first of all, you go back home to a country that you're told you're from.
Right.
To feel like you're a stranger in a country that you are supposed to come from is the most strangest feeling in the world. I felt like I was so not in my zone or anything like that.
In what sense, though?
I felt like, okay, there was
like,
a few
were people
things.
treating you differently, or like,
Yeah, right away, man. Right away, like
they knew you were a Western.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, first of all, my Arabic was broken to begin with.
Okay.
Right, so there's that one thing, and even like I remember at one point, like my mother was telling me, like they noticed even my mom not feeling and looking like an Iraqi, even at the fact she like grew up her whole life in Iraq, and she's like, you know, speaks like fluently Iraqi. And stuff.
Well, this is after how many years? You said you came when you were 3. So
yeah, so I think she didn't go back for a while, but at the same time, like still, like, you know what I mean, Iraq is Iraq. If you were raised born in it, you know, it's like you were there. Yeah. But when I went there, I was just like, man, it was so overwhelming. First of all, when I met my cousins and stuff like that, I felt a couple of things. I felt the fact of like, I should have grew up in Iraq.
You should have?
I should have.
Okay.
Because the one thing you'll realize in the Western
society
and stuff like that, there's a huge disconnect between family and
there's a lack of community.
Yeah, like big time, man. One thing I realized, like especially in Iraq, man, strangers love each other just because of the fact that they are the same people.
Right.
Right? There's how they speak to one another.
Right.
Here we say hello, good morning, nice gesture and stuff like that. But the words that Iraqis use,
right,
it's like
more
it's poetic,
genuine and loving, and
it's poetic, man.
Right.
It's like with Aini is my eye. You know, it's like we would use, hey buddy, this and that.
Hey buddy.
You know, if you're even in an argument, like hey guy, this and that, it's very aggressive, right? But like two Iraqis arguing each other, like Habibi. Habibi translates to sweetheart, and then Aini translates to my eye, my eye, you know. Come on, you know, and like just seeing that kind of.
I think that's still in our blood here. Like to a certain extent, we still like me and my Arab friends. Like we refer to each other, like even me and you, for example. Yeah. But it's a natural thing, right?
But
it's not this on the same level, obviously. But the reason being is because I don't know, people are stuck in a subconscious state of like rat race and like a very routine like lifestyle where we're always projecting into the future and stressed about tomorrow. Whereas over there, they're present, right? Yeah. Family, parents, like dinners together, like
the thing about it is
communal gatherings, right?
Here, like if I wanted to come over to my cousin, like if I had cousins over here or this and that, you would call them over and see this, see if they're home or Iraq, you just pop in, man. You pop into their house. It's like no one's home. Doesn't matter, no one's home. Like you go, like you know, you just have a bite or whatever. Like it's not like, you know, it's just that kind of community, that kind of love, you know. Like there's no disconnect, but at the same time, no doubt about it. There's probably other Iraqis out there that have that kind of community with one another.
Here,
in the West, that I haven't experienced, you know, or maybe I push myself away from that kind of.
I think it's a big city thing too, right?
Yeah.
Because everything becomes a mission.
Yeah.
Like if I was to come see you, you live like all the way up north. It becomes like an entire day's worth of. Yeah. Whereas over there, everybody's in a tight-knit community.
Yeah,
but in terms of like how you mentioned people coming over and stuff like that, trying to implement, like for example, I've noticed that, and I want to try to start implementing that in my life.
Yeah.
Like kind of like it's weird to say like TV shows, like you know how Friends are when someone shows up, it's like, oh, what's up, brother?
Yeah.
Like having that, well, people don't do that necessarily unless you're in like dorms or like in a university type of environment.
That's exactly it.
But yeah, after you get a career and stuff like that, there's a huge disconnect where people feel much lonelier than they should be. Like, I'm living in a condo full of how many people, I don't even know who my neighbors are.
Yeah.
And like, people live in giant complexes, they don't even know what their neighbors are. But that's just the society we live in, where it's not in comparison to like our past like parents' generations and stuff like that. Your neighbor can literally come to your house and have dinner.
But I think also with your situation, I think it's more or less, hey, these people are not home. They're probably just working. Or
Well, that's another thing. Everybody's busy as fuck too, right? It's like, I'm barely at home too. But yeah, that makes sense. It's a rat race at the end of the day.
And if you were like in probably a different suburban community and stuff like that, you have probably a bit of more of a connection. But at the same time, the connection is it's different. Like, because I always hear it all the time. Like, even if you live in Milton and stuff like that, you still have this like, my neighbors is like, like they're okay, they're cool. Like, you still have some sort of like kind of, you're rubbing shoulders in the wrong way.
I think the closer you get to the city, the more you come across people that have their blinders on.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the same time, like, if you're one to like wake them up and like shake them up from that reality, it is possible. You have to come across people, but like you said, everybody's busy. That's
There's that, but at the same time, you as an individual sometimes think like, maybe I'm opening up a can of worms if I actually break through these individuals. And then you start thinking about, like, do I really want to put myself in this situation?
I also think, I don't know, city life, people are tired all the time. Right? That's another thing, right? Yeah. Whereas if you compare it to, like you mentioned in Iraq and those places, it's more of a relaxed culture. Like, they don't stress about bills. They don't stress about how they're going to get their next paycheck, how they're going to pay their mortgage. Yeah. And without that stress, they live in a society that's the priorities are more humane. Like, it's like family, love, eat dinner, pray, like, and then work a little bit just to get some money. Yeah, but nobody's like, I need to get a Ferrari and like, it's not. It's
maybe the government.
It's not something that's like dangled in front of them in terms of like, this is a potential future if you work hard in this capitalistic society. Whereas in Canada and New York primarily, that's what media kind of feeds down your throat. Like, everyone you meet is like, what are you doing to become rich and famous, right? And then unfortunately, when it comes to that kind of lifestyle, you're not present, right? You're always grinding to a point where you're burning out, and sure, you might attain those things, but at what cost? So it is very refreshing when you visit other places around the world, when you see things, because it opens your eyes and it makes you look at things in a different perspective.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, I visited Mongolia a while back and stuff like that. Nice. A place that's beautiful. Who goes to Mongolia?
you do.
Me and my buddy from nowhere is just like, hey, let's go to Mongolia as we're doing our little kind of Asian trip.
You guys did an entire trip all around.
Yeah, so we went to Mongolia, hit up China, and went to Hong Kong, and then hit up Thailand. And I think it was in a 3.5 week span. 11 flights. Damn. Went around the world, pretty much, like literally around the world. We went. I think I actually have the list. It's hilarious because when you start thinking about when you're going across the whole entire continent, it puts things in perspective of like how small the world is, man.
It is. It's actually.
It's like it comes down to the fact of like, oh, here's the list. So here you go. It's pretty wild. Right. Tehran to Turkey to Bishkek to Mongolia to Beijing to Hong Kong to Phuket to Bangkok to Tokyo to Chicago to Toronto.
Jeez.
Yeah. 3.5 weeks to do that.
11 flights.
Yeah.
So what brought about the idea that you guys are one day just like?
Well, there's a couple things. My younger brother was living in China. In Shanghai.
So you wanted to visit him?
Yeah, that was the plan, but.
Turn into 10 more flights.
Well, the issue was, it was like, me and my buddy didn't plan out anything, so we only bought two flight tickets. One flying into Mongolia and one flying out of Thailand, and everything was winged. Nothing was planned.
So you guys had a time frame though, right? Like,
we gotta get back. Yeah, we had a time frame based off of our arriving back in Toronto and stuff like that. But then at the same time, everything in between, we had absolutely no clue. Spontaneous as heck. And then when you do things spontaneously, there's no expectations.
Bro, you make the greatest memories that way.
Every place we went to, there was some sort of event or something going. Hong Kong, there was the Rugby 7 randomly. Biggest event that happens, all these people from UK come and party up and stuff like that.
Nice.
And Thailand New Year.
Yeah.
This is all 3.5 weeks Thailand New Year.
Yeah.
Mongolia was a little more tricky. It was more an event. It was more about like there was a corruption protest that was going on there. Because Mongolia, they
Did
were
you
having
join the protest, bro?
No, I just I got more of an insight of like how Mongolia right now they've been exporting a lot of coal and stuff like that. And it's been really destroying their atmosphere. The beauty about Mongolia, like honestly, that's one place I would definitely visit again, is that the hospitality is like Canada. The respect factor and all these kind of things, like for me, 6'6" and stuff like that, right? And just like Arab and stuff like that, it's pretty like people stare at you.
Right.
Walking around Mongolia, all older people, no adults and stuff like that would stare at me.
Yeah.
Like, they would know they had this respect.
It's from a respectful perspective.
Yeah, for
right?
really respectful. All the kids, it was hilarious. The kids, at one point, we ended up we were at a museum checking out. And you gotta keep in mind, Mongolians actually went to the moon. Okay. They had an astronaut that actually went to the moon and stuff like that. So well, maybe the moon, or actually maybe it's just in space. And because they had that whole Russian influence, right? So yeah, at the museum, there's these like a classroom of kids outside and stuff like that, right? And I look at what the kid looks at me. He's like, right, and he grabs his friend. He's just looking. He grabs his friend. He's like, right, and I just say, hey guys. And it's like they're like, oh, they're like yeah. But as Canadians, of course, me and my buddy. Brought some like little kind of toys and Canadian gifts and stuff like that. So we bought like a couple of toys from the dollar store that had actual Canadian flags on them, and we just handed it out to the kids and stuff like that, just for them to like say, hey, the hospitality.
That's cute.
So it worked out. But like, just walking around and seeing a place that you think in the back of your mind is not developed, to see a full on like a town square, a full on city, like pretty much. Wi-Fi is everywhere. Wi-Fi is free everywhere and anywhere you go and stuff like that.
In Mongolia, it's free.
Yeah, Mongolia is free. Anywhere you go, you get Wi-Fi for free.
Is it regulated or is it? Do they have their pretend Googles and stuff like that?
No, I think they were still. I think they might have been still on maybe the Bing. Like how China has their own strict thing, but maybe they didn't have it on Bing. But everything's free and like I think their system is very different than up here. And you also have to keep in mind, Mongolia is like. They're still very culturally intact. Like you would still see a traditional, I think, yonek or something like that in the middle of the city, attached to a house. Like those teepee kind of thing, attached to a house still. So you have this traditional thing.
Their
with
culture is pretty strong and prominent.
Yeah, for sure, man. Like for sure. And even just like meeting the people, meeting like everything, it was such an awesome experience.
It was dope. What's the craziest story?
Well, I think it would have been more crazy. Well, there was a couple of things. First of all, we played basketball with a bunch of kids in Mongolia.
Nice.
And they are amazing at basketball. Good at it? Really good. Mongolia is made up of just like mountains and flatland and stuff like that. But they've paved a lot of these areas to influence the whole kind of basketball culture. And like right away, they know like Kobe and Shaq, and that's the only words they really know and stuff like that.
Right.
But another cool thing about it is like the influence of Russia, because Russia is next door, and they had like so like the cool thing about Mongolia is like you'll see these very exotic looking people in general.
Right.
Blue-eyed Asian looking individuals and stuff like that. But back to the crazy story, I think right at one point at the start was we got off the plane, we went to find a taxi. I asked my buddy, I'm like, so like how long does it take us to get to the hostel or the guest
So this was where? In
Mongolia.
In Mongolia, okay.
And we're like, how long would it take? He's like, I think it was like, I think he told me like, oh, maybe like half an hour or 20 minutes. So we talked to the taxi drivers and stuff like that. They're like, yeah, an hour and a half, an hour this and that. And we're like, and we don't have internet.
Right.
Right, like
so in a foreign country, just got off a plane, no internet.
No internet, we didn't.
And did they speak English?
Somewhat, not really, man. It was scary.
So
that
was even more
reassuring. Man. Oh man, it was so sketchy, man. Like right away, we're like, I don't like, man. If you go to a place like that, and like it's in the middle of nowhere, man. Like Mongolia, like you could disappear just like that, and that's how I felt it. Where it's like,
I mean,
we
you're
could
6'6". It's hard to make it.
But like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you can just drive up in there, like anywhere, like just like
Right,
take
right.
all of our luggage and take all of our money, and we're done. You know?
Right,
So it's
right.
like we didn't really think through any of this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like we just gonna forget, you know, fuck, let's do it. We jumped in the car, and he just started driving, and we're just like looking around, like, yeah, like I don't know, is there a Mongolian mafia here? Is it
Right.
run in a certain way? And we're just like hoping and looking, and I could see you, my buddy, like the fear we both had. In a way, just, like it's not like fear. It was just like
Something
nervous-
might potentially
yeah,
happen.
you know. And then we're like, oh, can we go to the bank and this and that? It's like, I don't know if he'll take us to like, you know, some
A
people.
real one, or
Yeah. So, and then another thing also is like we were trying to convert money in Toronto to Mongolian money, but Mongolian money is worth nothing, so you can't get Mongolian. You have to order Mongolian money into Toronto or into Canada
Right.
to actually get it exchanged and stuff like that. So yeah, like there was nothing really wild. I think it was just more or less all the different random experiences of like, you know, going to the mountains, and even before we even flew in, we flew over the Gobi Desert.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, gorgeous, man! Just these like beautiful landscapes and like, you know, flowing kind of mountains and stuff like that. It just looked phenomenal, man. But there wasn't anything crazy in Mongolia, but it definitely, I think it was either Hong Kong or China, hands down the most wildest stories down there, man. Just because of like, we didn't expect too much, and on top of that, first of all, when we came into China, both of us didn't do any research about, hey, do we need a visa? Do we need anything? Yeah.
Did you guys need a visa?
You need a visa in China, by the way.
So how did you guys manage to get that?
So we there's a 72-hour layaway kind of situation in China.
Okay.
Because but as long as you have a place where you're staying at,
Mm-hmm.
you could come into the country for that 72 hours, and you gotta fly out.
Okay.
So guess what? We didn't have a place to stay in. So we're in China.
So you had customs at the border?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we were just googling places to stay at,
Right.
right? But we didn't actually like book it.
anything.
So we're like, oh man.
If they call and they...
Well, that's what we thought, like, because they probably will call. Like, it only makes sense to verify where you're going.
Mhm.
They didn't call.
They
man.
didn't call.
And they let us in, and we're like, what the heck?
Canadian citizens
Yeah.
for the win.
But like, yeah, but like, we went in there. We stayed at a pretty nice hotel and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But yeah, that place was wild. Like, foreigners are treated really well in China. Like, you know, just, you know, we at one point in time we were walking the streets and stuff like that, and we were looking for a bank, and we saw this foreigner, looked a little Arabish, like, you know, and I was like,
Arabish
yeah.
looking.
So like, hey man, this guy probably gonna help us out. So we go
Right.
up to him. We're like, yo, where's the bank and this and that. And we told him, like, you know, is there like a nightlife somewhere we could just party and stuff like that? And he's like, yeah, like I'm a club promoter. Like, you know, this. I'm like, all right, come over. I'm like, we didn't believe him at the start. Then we ended up finding out that like foreigners pretty much get paid to go clubbing,
Right.
right? So if you
Is
ever,
it common to see foreigners in China or not?
yeah, depending on where
Yeah?
you are and stuff like that, it's really really common.
So which guys were you in, like the central part of?
I think man, honestly, right now I don't remember exactly where we were.
So you come across this Arabish looking guy who's a club promoter, and
He's a
he
club
invites
promoter.
you guys to come out.
And stuff like that. We didn't believe anything, so we're like, all right, let's go with it. He's like, yeah, just come. So we go there, get in there for free, line bypass, and like, all right, cool.
Nice.
Then he explains to us, like, yeah, like, so Chinese people love partying with foreigners because they feel like, you know, they're more party goers and stuff like that.
Right.
So the more foreigners that come into their clubs, the more Chinese people come in their clubs.
Mm-hmm.
Right? At least this is what he was telling and what he explained to us. And so it's like drinks are all for free.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's for free. So all the, you know, just like what? He's like, yeah. And he just kept signing away all these paperwork.
Right.
Every time we went to the bar, we would just call him over. He'll just sign the paper, and we'll just be, you know.
Nice.
So like.
VIP treatment.
Yeah, but by the end of the night, it got very, very odd and sketchy anyway, because we jumped into a cab, and we didn't realize that. Maybe I shouldn't be telling this story.
If you want to.
But we ended up in a car where a cab driver tried to somewhat take advantage of my friend.
Okay.
And they tried pretty much, yeah, he tried taking advantage of my friend, and we didn't have it. So we ended up at the opposite end of the situation where we
Took advantage of him.
yeah, right, and like ended up in a strange way where it's like, and then the funny thing about it is like we ended up coming home like at 4 or 5 in the morning,
Right.
and like an hour later we were supposed to go to a tour group to the Great Wall of China.
Damn.
So
That's
it's
after a night of going partying.
yeah, we ended up going to the Great Wall of China, like pretty much hungover, like you know. So that was a pretty wild experience. And like, yeah, man, that was an awesome experience.
So 11 flights. Do you have any other places on your destination list as far as going to visit, or?
Right now, nothing currently, but I definitely want to explore more of the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
Morocco, no, well, not Morocco, more or less. Like, well, definitely visit Iran, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, those places around there, Egypt. But at the same time, I think right now, man, I always look back as like, it doesn't matter where you go, man, Canada's home.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
we're born, I guess, raised here.
Yeah, something about Canada, man, you miss it.
But
Like,
I
you
was
could
just
be-
I was just about to say we're blessed in the sense that our families came down when they did.
Yeah, you
Like
know,
I pretty much in the same situation as you. My family came from the States, and I was 3 years old.
Yeah.
So say you said you were 3 as well, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so we're pretty much raised in Toronto. But yeah, having that freedom to just being able to buy a ticket and take 11 flights all over the world, like
Yeah.
let's say if we were to live back home, like, we wouldn't have that
No,
privilege
man, we would
whatsoever.
never have
Like
it
that
whatsoever.
freedom or
But that's the thing, boss. People don't realize
Yeah.
you need to have those types of experiences to grow as an individual, man. It's so eye opening. It makes you realize, A, the world is small, right?
yeah.
And the wild thing about it is like you bump into people in foreign countries, right? There was a time, even like I remember one time I haven't seen these guys in 11 years. I'm in Cuba. I haven't seen these guys, my high school friends, in 11 years. I'm in Cuba.
And coincidentally, you bump into-
Coincidentally, we're in the same club. And we're like, what the heck?
What are the chances?
Yeah,
of
what
this?
is the chance of that
Yeah.
happening? Stuff like that, man. And I'm just like, wow, this is wild, man. But at the same time, you grow as an individual. You need that type of experience. If anyone tells you, oh, I don't really travel, those types of individuals are the ones that need it the most,
Yeah.
right? Because they're so locked into their own kind of world and their own bubble. They don't realize
Yeah,
there's so much more out
shifts
there.
your perspective as
Yeah,
to
man.
how you see things when you're in a foreign country and
Yeah.
you see how other people are living, and if anything, they're more happy. Like,
Yeah, and you
especially in Cuba, for example. Like, I've been to Cuba 2 or 3 times, and the people there are like the most loving and friendly as well.
Yeah, man.
Like, they'll come, they'll smile, they'll wave at you, they'll hug you, and you're like, yo, this is how life should be.
Yeah, yeah,
It
exactly.
shouldn't be so cold and dry.
Yeah,
Right?
I don't think people really remind themselves on a daily basis of like exploring more options than what they're just given
Yeah.
here. You know.
We're living in a concrete jungle in a way, but yeah, everybody's busy. But that's the thing. Is like if you treat people like that here, depending on where you are, they'll look at you like a fucking weirdo.
Yeah, and that's the thing. But that leads also me into like what we were talking about before, happenstance and stuff
Happenstance,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Having that vibe and influence.
Yeah, and how everything's interconnected with each other in a way where it's like that your experience somewhere else
Right.
helps other people's experience in those countries realize.
That there's hope, there's potential.
Yeah, and there's also like, oh, these guys are not that bad from these other countries. That's
Right.
one thing I realized in Iraq. That's one major thing is that I realized when I was there is like they always assumed that we foreigners had this belief about Iraqis only sticking to Muslim people because it's a Muslim state,
Okay.
you know. And when I was hanging out with my uncles and my like my cousins stuff like that, they had different types of religion people hanging out with them, Christians, this and that. But at the same time, they thought that we believe that they don't do that,
Right.
right? And I was just
It's
like,
more strict.
yeah. And I thought in my mind, I'm like, I wonder where that came from. How they actually believe that, like we had this view about them,
Right.
But as I said, like we need people to go cross those boundaries of making themselves uncomfortable. And stuff
Just
like
breaking barriers, right?
that.
Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, those are all social constructs too. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
right? Like in terms of stigma associated with belief systems, ideologies, and all that kind of stuff. But like you mentioned, like when you meet someone and on the surface level, it's like you don't know the experiences that they've had. You don't know who they are as a person, and I guess first impressions are natural. Like it's hard not to have them, but it's like you never really know someone until you get to know
Oh
get
yeah,
to know
for
them.
sure. Like I always look at the first time I meet someone, I feel like it's like the honeymoon stage of the relationship, where everything's like, hey, this guy's cool, this guy's chill, this and
And
that.
you might get a gut feeling or
Yeah.
whatnot, but in terms of like just culture, ethnicity, and all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff, especially that's what the beauty about living in Canada is because it's such a diverse country,
Yeah.
right?
People are
And in a
so
lot of places, it's not like that.
not
right?
whatsoever, man.
Right.
Yeah, they're very
Yeah.
like isolated, they keep to themselves, and they're like, oh man,
Yeah.
it's like strange to interact with someone
And
that's
that's
not.
such an odd thing, and I feel like people are becoming more open-minded, and like with the internet and just being connected with everyone, you have that awareness,
Yeah.
and then you realize that there's like specific agendas in place to create that,
Yeah.
whether it's like just old school beliefs or political, whatever it may be, but those boundaries are being broken slowly.
But it's also very important to break those boundaries because of the fact that back to the happenstance is that maybe because of the interaction you're having with this random stranger and stuff like that could help them in a certain way. There's a chain reaction of events that might help you them. Even the smallest thing is like an individual that has this persona or belief that everyone in the subway that's brown or Arab or this and that is a certain type of stereotype and stuff like that.
Right.
And then suddenly, like an old lady comes in and you just give up your seat. That could just trigger a whole different perspective of just it's like I've never been offered a seat by
A brown man.
a brown man or this and that. You never know. You never know
Right.
what kind of mindset because maybe she had an experience, a really bad experience throughout her life from a different individual that was my ethnicity and stuff
It's
like that.
media as well at the end of the day, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like how we're portrayed on media, and like that
And-
has a huge influence on people that are not necessarily surrounded by those type of people.
Yeah.
Like for like the people I know, like even me, I've grown up with all types of ethnic groups or whatever. Like everybody is equal to me in a sense. Some people don't have that, right? They grow up in communities or private schools, and then their view and outlook and like perception of other groups of people are skewed and distorted.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate,
Yeah. But then at the same time, I think we were discussing about this before about like how like certain events or certain situations that might occur with you may not be meant for you as an individual. Like for example, you see individuals that are win an award or get the job over another person that's qualified and stuff like that. You always have to step back for a second and say, hey, maybe it's not necessarily them getting the job or them getting that promotion. Maybe there's more to that situation that connects other individuals to that situation. Maybe that individual that got that promotion need that promotion because of the fact that they have a situation at home that allows them to maybe help maybe a disabled person that they have in their family or someone that's really and even after the fact he's like, man, that guy has absolutely no qualifications for that situation, right? And I think people have to remind themselves, it's like, hey, maybe those individuals are not qualified. There's an other underlying situation that's going on that you don't know, and he as an individual probably doesn't even realize himself that it's happening, right? But he's like, I got the job, I'm great, like I'm better than all these people and stuff. But when you really look into it and you figure out where maybe the money's going or where it's going, like he may be doing something different that we don't know, but he has this kind of belief that it's all him, right? And people have to really step back and start realizing, there's always a reason for what occurs.
The way you broke everything down, I feel like when it comes to all that kind of stuff in terms of goals, success, ambitions, or whatever energy you put out there, it will be answered in a way. Like the universe, like whatever higher power, universe, God, whatever you want to call it, that if it's a genuine thought or like dream or whatever put out, you will, if the opportunity presents itself and you're ready for it. Like some people consider that like being lucky.
Yeah.
Those type of things unveil themselves, but whether or not you're ready to hop on those opportunities is completely up to you, right?
Yeah.
So because you're in a specific life situation and then things start to unfold as they should, but you're in a position where you are prepared to hop on those opportunities because they wouldn't have presented themselves in the first place.
Yeah.
So when it comes to those kind of things, it's like a general sense of appreciation and like realizing that we all have that ability to manifest what we want in life. It's just a matter of believing in yourself and your capability of just being the best version of you, and then player one status. That's how I break it down to everyone. Like, if you're living an unconscious lifestyle where you're reacting to everything and not being grounded, you're gonna get mediocre results. But if you realize and you wake up every day and like knowing that, okay, if I put my best foot forward today and be player one in this reality that we're life reality, like whatever happens to you, you have that grounded perspective and the judgment and that clarity to make decisions that will lead to that promotion or whatnot. It's all like stepping stones, and there will be failures and stuff like that along the way, but having that mindset is like, okay, what I'm doing is catered towards not just selfish reasons. It's like on a grander scale, but I have these dreams and goals and aspirations for whatever it might be, but that's how the world works in a way. It's crazy. Like sometimes it's like too much of a coincidence when it happens, but I definitely feel like if you put things out or like write things down in a journal or like genuinely, I don't know, put it out there in whatever way you want to call it, like I mentioned before, it will manifest.
But it's very, very important to follow through every single step of the way. Because if you're not following through, you're not believing in yourself, you're not actually reaching to that higher standard of player one status and stuff like that. And you just have to remind yourself that, hey, you know what? It's just like a slingshot, you know? You always get pulled back, right? It gets to a point where you get pulled back so far, right? That slingshot goes, you let go of that slingshot, and you propel yourself to some place that you never, ever expected to be.
Or like the other metaphor, like people when they talk about like being in a dark place, it's like you can see light when you're in. That's where, and then you'll notice which direction you need to go in. But like everybody's experienced those dips, or whether being pulled back and like propelled. But noticing that and using that as a tool for motivating yourself and like inspiring yourself, like failure is not failure. Like it's a learning experience. But the thing that I guess irritates like people that are very driven, like for me, for example, when I see someone not meeting their utmost highest potential, that bothers me in a way where it's like, okay, if you're not happy in the life situation you're in, you do realize that you're capable of so much more if you just switched up a little things here and there. And now that we have the internet and books or whatever, you can shift your perspective so easily, and all that information is available.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So if you're unhappy, stressed, or depressed or whatever, there are ways to get out of that, right? It's just a matter of like mustering up that little bit of willpower and like, but same thing, it's like I guess some people are more introspective than others.
And you brought up the fact of like there is light and darkness. They coexist. You can't have a shadow.
There's a duality.
You can't have a shadow without light.
Exactly.
You know? So you have to remind yourself there has to be light for that shadow to exist. Right.
No, there's a polarity and duality to everything. You have to appreciate. Like if that's another thing too. Like a lot of people, like I don't know, philosophers and like another guy I talked to you about earlier. His name is Naval. Like he talks about it too. Like there's a polarity to everything. Like, if you hadn't seen something like someone or something like that's grotesque, you wouldn't understand beauty, right? If you don't experience what it's like to be lonely and unloved, you won't appreciate love as much. Right? You always have to have a kind of like a contrast point. Exactly. And that applies to so many different situations in life. So even for us growing up, we had a little bit stigma associated with like the culture, our background, and how we're portrayed in media and all that kind of stuff. But that's not something that prevented us from pushing forward and
I think there's also the simple fact about it's where the country we're in. We have more opportunities.
We have more opportunities, and it's a blessing at the end of the day, right? So yeah, it's like everybody has unlimited potential. It's like how do you tap into that potential and become great?
I think, as I said sometimes, man, like there's people out there, man, that sometimes you just don't. You gotta step away and not help them in a way, because sometimes there's people out there, man, that they need to grow by themselves. There's other, like, there's a situation where it's like there's family members and other people, not my kind of scenario, but what I've heard and stuff like that. It's like, oh, my son needs a little kind of advice and this and that. But there's sometimes it comes down to that individual needs to as you said,
you
struggle.
need to be open to the
Yeah.
concept of wanting to grow and level up too,
Yeah.
right? So if someone's struggling, whatever, that's another thing too. Those type of people will gravitate to other people that have the answers,
Yeah.
right? So for example, like if I don't know, I have anxiety or whatever, I'll do my research and stuff like that. But then I'm more open to digesting those altered perspectives. If
Yeah.
someone's in that state of mind and they're not ready to change as a person and they don't realize the potential that they have and they still need to suffer, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
and
And we're all
reach
yeah.
that point where they're open to other people's perspective on how to interpret their life situation, that's on them. And yeah, I've talked to a lot of people that say that. They're like, oh, when I see so and so or these type of group of people, I want to shake them out of their.
Yeah, but it doesn't come down to them.
That's not your responsibility,
No, it's not,
right?
whatsoever. And especially in those individuals, sometimes it's more actually toxic for those individuals to be helping out,
Yeah.
because of the fact that those individuals don't want that help. They're just telling you like, I don't want you to be around, and they need them to actually allow them just to grow on their own and find their own way. You know, I realized that just from experience and stuff like that. Another thing you brought up was how you said, oh, I just lost my train of thought. I think you brought up the fact of how individuals, when they want to grow and stuff like that, sometimes you do need a lifeline, sometimes you don't need a lifeline. But other times it's like, you really got to just sit there and think about where you are in life and how happy you are.
It's an appreciation thing, right? Like realizing, because just as an example, like where we are right now, if you backtrack 5 years,
oh man, it's wild.
We probably dreamed of being here,
I know.
right? And a lot of people get so stuck in projecting themselves into the future and this like optimal lifestyle of having more and more and more. In a way, that's what propels you to continue growing and striving to become more successful or whatnot. But having that awareness of realizing and appreciating and being grateful makes that process that much more enjoyable, right? Because then you're not sleepwalking through life.
Yeah. I think also a lot of people realize their full potential is when they stop thinking about other individuals being so much more of a higher status than them.
Yeah, comparison is always a poisonous perspective,
well, yeah,
right?
comparison is the thief of joy, right?
Yeah, comparison is the enemy of happiness. It's also the thief of joy. But yeah, the thing is, everybody's on their life journey. It's like a game almost, right? So once you realize you can overcome failures and you can level up, and it's just a matter of, okay, I approach this way. How can I change whatever it is that I'm doing in order to get the outcome I want?
Yeah.
Boiling it down to why in the first place, that will make a whole world of a difference, because then you have that driving factor as to what the reason behind everything is, right? Because a lot of people, they're like, I want to be rich, I want to be famous, I want to have it. But it's like, okay, have you boiled down to why you want these things, right? And then you kind of ask them, and then they'll get stumped. They'll be like, actually, I don't, like, okay, if you...
Well, they don't, they just see this kind of glorified kind of view.
So when you break it down, it's like, you do realize, like, after you get those things, whatever, it's like a big house, a yacht.
Yeah. Does that make you happy?
You're gonna be the same person that you are now in terms of how you perceive things, and those things bring you limited joy and happiness.
But and one thing you brought up before is the word suffering. That is such an important word, because people don't realize we're all suffering in any kind of situation. We're all suffering. The question is how to lessen that suffering, and then
it's like how you cope with it, how you manage that kind of stuff.
Because like no one's in a perfectly happy mood with anything. It's just it's a really tricky kind of. It's just trying to figure out what works for you as an individual, what works for others around you to keep that kind of realm of your happiness and your lessening of suffering.
It's a life choice too, right? There's like, it's how you perceive whatever the situation may be, and like the duality with everything, like comparatively speaking. Like what I do right now for work, it's blessed. I'm like, same with you. Like we're in a position where we're doing what we love, we're creative, we're making good money, like we're successful in regards to career standings. Yeah. Because we've been in positions where we suffered and we've been stumped, we've been in, I don't know, debt and like school, tuition fees and all that kind of stuff, the appreciation is that much greater. Yeah. It's like that same analogy, like when someone wins a lottery or whatever, they haven't deserved that money. Yeah. So the way they're going to spend it and whatnot is going to be in a very careless and reckless manner. Yeah. And they're probably going to end up unhappy or broke or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
but I think another thing is also like Einstein said this. He's like don't strive for success, but strive for value,
Yeah.
because success could happen overnight, right?
Right.
There's a ton of one-time hitter musicians out there that hit that one note and they're like, oh, they're all famous and
They're
stuff like that.
famous overnight.
But with value stays with you for life. You know what I mean? Value could not just basically value could actually change in somewhere else, but value could stay with for your life for life in a way where it's like everyone will appreciate it because of the fact that it has more weight than just being just success itself. You know?
And yeah, when you break it down, like the thing is, we're in a generation where we can observe all these rich, wealthy, successful individuals, and they're very transparent these days. You can see what they're going through on an emotional level. You can see, and they have everything. So when you break everything down from that regard, it's like what really matters for you as a person, right?
Yeah.
And what does that come down to? It's like just being a genuine, caring, loving individual to like your friends, your family, people that are close to you, and fulfilling your life purpose from a creative standpoint and doing something that brings you that fulfillment.
Yeah.
Right? And then so when you're rich and all that kind of stuff, sure, life is easier, but money at the end of the day is a tool. It'll just make things less stressful.
Yeah, exactly. And, well, in a way it does, and in a way it doesn't, right? Because more money, more problems, as they say. Right? And it's tricky like that, right? It's like how to find that balance when you become wealthy, right? But a lot of people overnight, rich people, what's the statistic behind that? Most of them end up broke after like a few years. Some of them die from overdoses. Some of them, like, you know. So in a way, you have to, as you said, you have to work hard to appreciate that money more than, you know, just getting it overnight and just being given it to you.
It's a tools. Like even in like when I was a kid, like playing video games, for example. The moment you enable those cheat codes, you get bored. After an hour or 2 hours of playing, you have unlimited money, unlimited things, and like that's another thing too. Like going to like all-inclusive resorts. After 2 or 3 days, you get bored. Yeah. Right. It's like you have.
You're homesick.
It's like you have unlimited. Like there's drinks are unlimited, food is unlimited. There's beach, you can party, you can do everything in an abundance for free. You feel like that's how you'd feel if you were wealthy. Yeah. But there's no fulfillment. After 2-3 days, they're like, okay, this is the same repeat thing over and over again. I'm tired. I want to go back to just being productive in a way, creative, right? But it's like, what's that feeling, right? That's the same feeling you'll get if you were to be wealthy here, or like rich and like indulge in all those kind of things that media kind of portrays that you need a Bugatti or whatever it is that you need, because that's temporary.
Oh yeah, for sure. You got definitely, like, if you hit the big dollars and stuff like that, you definitely got to pay it forward, man, and help those individuals at one point that you were in that kind of same position where it's like, you know, I wish I had a bit of extra money to get this or to pay my rent for that month or whatever this and that, because it goes a long way, man, when you do good things to people, that are, especially in a tight situation, man, the amount of blessings you get is unbelievable, man. And the amount of happiness and joy comes to you.
It's fulfillment.
Oh man, like it's there's nothing in this world. Anything you get, diamonds, this and that, all this kind of stuff is emptiness, man. It's just empty. It's something to fill that void that you were brought up, that void within you, you know. And then you get to a point where it's like, so what's next?
Exactly.
You know, and then it's just like I'm not cool with this. Like that's it. Like, you know, it's like I was told a whole different story when I was growing up, right? And I was like, yeah, look at these and the
things become a lot more transparent as you grow older in terms of your priorities. And like, don't get me wrong, there's probably some rich people that are very happy and content with what they have, but that's just how they perceive life.
Well, maybe that's how they show that image of being that kind of situation.
But at the same time, if you worked your ass off, blood, sweat, and tears, and like you reward yourself with something like that, there's nothing wrong with that. But if it's just from a strictly materialistic point, then that's debatable in terms of whether or not. But no, ultimately what I'm getting at is like in terms of financial situation, all that kind of stuff, like I guess being in a position where it's like that, like I mentioned before, it's like we're playing a game and it's a tool almost, right? So if you can follow a path in which that you're doing what you enjoy and you love, and you're making something out of that in a way that's like the most fulfilling, let's say, right?
For sure.
So even in the industry that we're in, we're very creative, right?
Yeah.
We have that creative outlet. If you compare yourself to, I don't know, like, not to bash on accountants or anything,
Yeah.
like something that's redundant and you go to work every day and it's like the same.
What's the highest suicide rate for industry? I think it's either lawyers or something else. I'm trying to remember, but it was like this high kind of job where you make a lot of.
Well, you make a lot of money and it's stressful, right?
Yeah. And it's meaningless stress. It's like stress that like, oh man, like why?
Right.
Why? It's not even worth
It's
it.
just you're dealing with other people's negative energy.
But that's what's wild about it. It's like, man, I'm sure you do the same thing. I smile on the subway every morning.
Right.
Right? Like I don't have like a chip on my shoulder when I'm going to work.
Right.
I'm looking around me on the subway, I'm looking at people and it's like they have this like melancholy kind of look or just like this just really flat look. They either put their headphones on, this, that. And what I do, right, compared to other people, I sketch people on the subway, right? I'm one of those individuals that sketch
one of those individuals.
What is it called? Sketch the train or something like that.
Okay.
Either. I'm not one of those. And the thing about it is, like, I think maybe I just stare at people too much sometimes, and I start getting lost in their world. Because then I start realizing I'm just like,
what's going on in their reality.
Based off of how they're reacting, what they're reading, or I try to put myself in their shoes as I'm drawing sometimes, right? And I think that influences and inspires how my drawing turns out. and what the in a way the crappy situation is like my drawings sometimes just turn out really sad because like these people are not happy people. I can't draw a person with a smile because the person there is not smiling in front of me.
Right. Well, the subway in general, like public transportation, is pretty.
Yeah, but at the same time,
it's very draining and no, I know what you mean.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be, right? Like it's not like the thing about the subway, man. It's not about where you're ending up. It's the journey, man. Right? If people think about the journey, right, they're probably more or less, it's like, you know.
They're not present, right? They're just waiting to get to the destination. And then when they get to the destination, they're waiting for the day to end. And when the day ends, they're waiting to get back home. And when they get back home, they're tired as fuck. And then it's just a cycle. And then after weeks and months pass, that kind of drains you. So it's like to those type of people, it's like you need to find, I don't know, like something
that they're happy
it's
with.
a hobby or for me, like it's like a creative output. That's the best way to put it.
I think what it is exactly that. Like our education system has pushed and put so much weight on theory and just like the sciences and the Englishes and this
which
and that.
Is fine. Like you need all that kind of stuff to be in a position where we're at right now.
But it doesn't explore the other
time,
side of your hemisphere of your brain. Right.
That's why Elon Musk's approach on everything is like so, like dope in regard to like once technology reaches a point where all the mundane jobs and everything are out of the way.
Yeah.
And Naval talks about this too. People can be more creative.
Oh yeah.
Because then we'll have that freedom. We'll have that time to just do things that are out of the norm and like that's our true human expression, right?
And the most famous people in history and stuff like that use both sides of their hemisphere.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, from Da Vinci to all these other individuals and stuff like that, they always had a creative side to them and stuff like that, you know?
Do you do any meditation or mindfulness practices? Curious.
I think my meditation and my therapy is drawing.
Drawing?
Yeah, that's because I don't draw at work because it's all, you know, technical and it's more or less, you know, my mouse and my tablets and stuff like that, right? But like for me, it's like when I draw, I'm in my own kind of realm, and I'm like in a way focused, but I'm at peace. Right. But at the same time, I'm at peace. It's like I'm allowing myself, as I was saying.
You're present in a sense, right? You're not thinking about anything but that pen hitting the paper.
Yeah, and the more I see what is in front of me being created, the more joy it brings in a way to me, right? Because it's like I'm doing something that a lot of people, in a way, have potential to do, but they haven't triggered that side of their brain. It's like individuals that go to work and say, okay, they crunch numbers.
Right.
Great. Awesome. You crunch numbers. You've triggered a very certain part of
minimalist part of it,
yeah, right? And it's like you're doing great. But those crunching of the numbers, right? Some of them will bring them joy, for sure, you know? But at the same time, you know? Like, or like, you know, maybe it does bring them joy and stuff like that, right?
You know?
You know? But at the same time, it's like, you still have to be expressive.
Right.
Maybe that's what it is, you know. If you crunch numbers with a bit of expressions, I don't know how you would do that. You know, I think in a way you'll be a bit more happier with the situation, right? If you're crunching numbers where you're smashing your keyboard until the key, what do we call it?
Pops out.
Pops out, stuff like that. Buddy, maybe you're expressing your anger with the
Right.
wrong expression. You know, you want to express yourself in a happy way. You know, and that's what I say back to what I was talking about my therapy with drawing and stuff like that. It's like it brings me to this kind of peacefulness.
It's like a Zen practice.
Yeah,
No,
you know?
I
And then at
understand.
the same time, I think like, you know, when I was younger and even to now, once in a while, I'll do my prayers and stuff like that. Just to remind myself that, you know what I mean, like there is a higher being, there is someone powerful, there is a divine power out there, man. And anyone that denies that, I personally believe they're very silly, you know, because there's no reason. There's always an action for every action there's a reaction, right? In anything in life, right? And for your belief thinking that there's no higher being that created what's around us and there's no control behind everything, it's a wild thing to think about.
Well, yeah, I agree in the sense that nobody can say for certain there's nothing.
There's laws. There's laws
Right.
in everything, man. There's laws of nature. There's laws of so many things. A perfect example in nature is African cichlids. African cichlids, when they school together, one fish is a brilliant color and everyone else is a very dull color. You take that one fish out of that tank, guess what happens within 5 minutes? Another fish steps up. How would people think about fish as like you know, you just put it on the barbecue, you put it in the oven, you eat it. How is that just there? There's a law between them, right? Or the ecosystem of a radius in a forest or an Amazon forest. The release of oxygen and stuff like that, or CO2 in that atmosphere, is based off of how large the trees are, right? If you actually they did a study where if you cut the length of the branches of the tallest tree there, and you measure them with the other trees surrounding, they actually measure the same height to one another.
Right.
Right. So and if you cut that large tree, one large tree will grow even higher because there's a perfect balance amongst those trees, man. Right. What we do is polar opposite.
Right.
We poison this world because of the fact that there is no balance in our lifestyle. There is no balance amongst one another. There's no any of that kind of stuff.
Savages and all
Yeah,
that.
and that's what it is, and that's why we're so destructive to this planet.
Barbarians.
Yeah. Why do you think it's wild to think like everything around existed around us for such a long time, and the second we come, we're poisoning it. There's so many issues, there's so many problems, there's so many this and that, and like people step back and say, "Oh man, it's global warming. Oh man, yeah, sure, yeah, it is global warming. It's all right." But at the same, have you ever stepped back and said, "Hey man, you are you are."
All right.
Yeah, you are the.
But in terms of making a big impact, it have to be much higher scale change in terms of
or even like
just
that,
like mass populations.
or even the coronavirus kind of situation, the most recent situation, right? It's like people are like conspiracy theorists are saying, "Oh, you know, it's the U.S. trying to control population and stuff like that." You ever think of Mother Nature trying to control the population of the Earth?
It's possible.
Right?
Have you seen the movie The Happening?
Yeah, there you go.
With the trees that start murdering people.
And that's the thing about it. It's like there's this balance, right? There's this balance where it's like the Earth is telling everyone else, it's like, "Hey guys, you're taking up too much space." And it's not even you're taking up too much space. You're just building too much shit. So we gotta destroy you guys a bit, so you guys can rebuild, but it's gonna take you a little longer until you rebuild.
It's possible, yeah.
You know? You never
Wait
know.
until global warming melts all the glaciers.
Yeah.
There's probably gonna be so many crazy viruses that pop out after that.
For sure. Or even like the coral reefs are dying. That's why I did the whole entire study, right? Like my idea behind that thesis of the coral reef science study is to educate individuals about like coral reefs. Right? If they don't exist, sharks don't exist.
Right.
Right? Sharks thrive with coral reefs, man. Right? Because there's like perfect symbiotic relationship amongst all the different corals, fishes, the anemones. All these things, they have this relationship with one another to exist with amongst each other. Right? And people are like
diverse ecosystems.
Yeah, and the thing about it is like there's nothing but coral bleaching because of the high temperature of the sun hitting the water and killing off all the coral and allowing us allowing that to happen is insane.
Yeah.
Do you not like? I'm
But
sure-
everything balances itself out at the end of the
Yeah.
day. If the Ice Age comes back, we're all screwed.
But it's messed up to think that like the Great Coral Reef or the Great Barrier Reef,
Right.
beautiful, gorgeous, like this, like it's this mystical kind of thing that like the people, and we just like get rid of it for cement walls and. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a silly
It's
concept.
a survival thing and making
it's wild, man.
compromises, right?
It's wild, man. It's like
Do you believe in aliens or ghosts?
I
It's a
think
huge derail of conversation,
Yeah,
but
I
I'm just
think-
curious.
I think energy flows in everywhere. Like obviously, I'm a lighting compositing artist. Yeah, I gotta throw it out there. So it's like I understand the science behind how photons move and stuff like that around.
Right.
And I realized like if you turn on a light in a room, the photons bounce on the walls of the room, and the room absorbs the light,
Right.
or the photons warm up the room. You turn off the light, the heat of the room disappears because the photons are not there, and and all that kind of stuff, right? Same thing as like energy within us, right?
Right.
There's energy exists in us, right?
Yeah.
So obviously that energy when we die has to go somewhere else. It just
Right.
doesn't disappear, right? So if it goes in the realm of as the Muslims say barzakh, the waiting place, maybe barzakh is here, in a different realm within us or somewhere on a different planet. I don't know where it is exactly, but yeah, for sure there's some other entities amongst us that we don't see that have its own kind of they have their own kind of dimension, if you want to call it. At the same time, I'm not walking around, what is it, chasing ghosts and.
So you don't believe in ghost hunters?
I don't believe that. I think.
I believe our senses are limited in terms of what we can perceive.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think like I'll tell
It's
you.
hard to say that kind of stuff doesn't exist either.
Yeah, like I think my mother told me stories when we were younger because like in Iraq, there's these people that are in the mountains.
They're in the mountains.
Yeah, you've seen them in movies. You've seen them
They
in.
practice dark magic.
Well, pretty much, yeah. They're like,
okay.
yeah, that's exactly what they are.
Really?
They're the devils. Like
Shit.
Yeah, they're like they're certain. You've actually probably even seen them in movies when they like those. I think the Three Kings. They have like a black line across their faces.
Okay.
Right. And yeah, they speak tongues and stuff like that, and they're pretty much they speak thing. But and like my mother told me experiences that she's seen before with these individuals that and it's and in Islam we have jinns.
Right.
Right. So it's
So
like
demonic.
yeah, demonic
beings.
kind of creatures that we don't really see, but
It's like
exist around.
angels and demons. And
Yeah. So like yeah, for sure there is something else. There is, but it's just as you said, like we can't trigger it because of
our limited senses.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of inspiration and motivation, when it comes to people that want to be creative but fear diving into that realm, do you have any advice or tips? Just do it.
Yeah. you know what, man? Everyone, don't ever think when you're in a room amongst individuals that you look up to and stuff like that, that you would never potentially ever become that individual one day.
Exactly.
Yeah,
remind yourself. Unlimited potential.
Yeah.
It just takes hard work and just understanding how to improve, and it's a long game.
Yeah, and the thing about it is like, you could always, and I always repeat it, you could always reinvent yourself. If you went through a tough time in your life, man, and you felt like you've been broken, and at a younger age and stuff like that, and that you could never recover from that,
right?
That's a lie. You're lying to yourself, and at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, you could get out of that situation, and believing in getting out of that situation, and finding the right environment and finding the right people to surround yourself with is probably the most important thing for you to get out of that kind of mindset, and to believe that hey, you could be who you always wanted to be, even after the fact you've been through the most wildest
life situations,
man. You know what I mean? And I think that's really important because I think a lot of people, especially like people that live in poverty and stuff like that, they always believe that hey,
they don't have hope or they give up.
They feel like they're a statistic, man.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one thing about people, man. is that they believe that they're ascetic, but they're believing in the wrong thing.
Yeah,
It's like throughout their
that's
life.
the power of the mind, though.
Yeah.
Like belief and all that kind of stuff. If you have a strong belief system, anything is possible.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm hoping that one day like through my struggles in life and my experience in life, that others will realize that, hey man, like I hear you. And
Yeah.
that's what's really important, man. Is that like I hope one day, like that everyone out there that really wants something, that they can get it, man. And as long as you said, like work hard and put their mind to it, man.
All right. That's dope. Very deep.
Try to get try to leave it at a really
I appreciate talks like this.
Man.
I appreciate your time. You're my brother.
Me,
Much love. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, man.
Thanks everyone for watching. Bye.
Take care, guys.
Boom.
That was good, man. That was dope.